good.
You are getting rich right now.
It's not included, but this is a little bit easier to read on the bids.
All right, I'll call to order the Millersville Board of Commissioners regular meeting agenda Tuesday, August 15th, 2017 at 5:30 p.m. If everyone would please stand for the invocation and pledge.
Let's pray, God. Father, it sure is a joy to be here this evening. I hate that I missed last month, but I love coming to these meetings because it's great to be a part of what's happening here in our city. We thank for our leaders, and we thank you, Lord, for the leadership they provide and the blessings that you give us as a community. We're just blessed beyond measure. So bless our time together tonight. Give our leaders wisdom. Give our citizens wisdom. Lord, may we continue to dwell in peace and in unity. Bless our leaders and our nation. And we'll thank you for all that you do in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next will be the public hearings. The first one is ordinance 17-677, rezoning 73 McMurtry Road, Sumner County map 118, parcel 071.00 from residential 2 to residential 3. I'll now open for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Second one, ordinance 17-678, amending the Millersville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 90, Section 434, swimming pools. Now open public hearings. No comments, I'll close the public hearing. Third one, ordinance 17-675, levying a privilege tax on hotels and motels in the city. Now open for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close public hearing. Fourth, ordinance 17-679, amending the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget to include expenses for the police tow lot and another employee for public works. I'll now open for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. This time, we need to amend the regular meeting agenda to include a resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend our agenda tonight to add resolution 17-R-14.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded to amend the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? I guess it'll go between 13 and 14. Item number 3, approval of the July 18, 2017 regular meeting minutes. Call for motion.
Make a motion that we approve the July 18, 2017 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item number 4, approval of the August 7th, 2017 special meeting. Call for motion.
Make a motion that we approve the August 7th, 2017 special meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, acceptance of the July 2017 financials. Call for motion.
Make a motion that we accept the July 2017 financials.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item number 6, approval of ordinance 17-677, rezoning 73 McMurtry Road, Sumner County map 118, parcel 071.00 from residential 2 to residential 3. This is the second final reading. Call for motion.
I move that we approve ordinance 17-677, rezoning 73 McMurray Road, Sonoma County map 118, parcel 71, from residential R2 to residential R3.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Gregor.
Aye.
Commissioner Bailey. I vote aye. Commissioner Cole.
Aye.
Motion carries a vote of 4-0. Item number 7, approval of ordinance 17-678, amending the Millersville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 90, Section 434, swimming pools, second and final reading. Call for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 17-678.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, again, this will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Gregor.
Aye.
Commissioner Bailey.
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Cole.
Aye.
Motion carries by a vote of 4-0. Number 8, approval of ordinance 17-675, levying a privilege tax on hotels and motels in the city. Second and final reading. Call for motion.
I move that we approve ordinance 17-675, levying a 2.5%. 2.5% privilege tax and bed tax on hotels and motels to be located in the city of Millersville.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this will also be a roll call vote. Commissioner Gregor.
Aye.
Commissioner Bailey.
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Cole.
Aye.
Motion carries by a vote of 4-0. Item number 9, approval of ordinance 17-679, amending the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget to include expenses for the police tow lot and another employee for public works. This will be the second and final reading. Call for motion.
I have a motion on this. My motion is essentially to separate the two issues under this ordinance. In other words, I would prefer that we vote on at least total lot separate from the additional employee for public works. They seem to me to be two issues combined into one ordinance. And I know that it's reasonable to do it that way, but I just felt it would be best, the city would be best here if we separate those out and take two votes instead of just one vote. And that way we can discuss the other issues. In other words, for each of them have to be voted on their own merit. Okay. And that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second, and then I do have discussion. On that, then, do we have to separate this ordinance out separately in order to vote? Do we know that?
Basically, what Rob had told me earlier, that if we separate it and take a vote on each item, the tow lot and the extra, the other employee, that it would pass the ordinance. Since they are in the same ordinance, we'd just be taking two votes.
Okay, so we can keep it in the one ordinance then, just vote. Okay.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is the ordinance you're amending, the one that has the detailed breakdown. So it was adopted by one ordinance, but I guess you can separate the motions since you're talking about separate funds. So
They are separate funds, correct?
they are, but we're amending one ordinance, which is the budget ordinance that you adopted. So
So I guess my question is that how do we vote if everybody votes yea for one side
And
and
one fails,
nay,
then-
yeah,
right,
when it
correct.
fails, then the ordinance itself will fail, period. Am I correct?
Yes.
yes,
Then, now,
The only suggestion I have is just to take a vote, two separate votes on each one of them and see what we're dealing with at the end. I mean, I don't know any other.
well, I guess my concern is I'm concerned about the police tow lot, that if, the public works does not pass, then we are delaying again the tow lot, correct? Until next month. And then we have to start all
The tow
over.
lot's almost done, it's already been completed, the money, it's already been approved.
But it was in the prior fiscal year, and the auditors stated that we have to amend this budget, since the work, we had to bid it out, the fence, because it came in over the $10,000 bid limit. So we have to amend the budget. Well, we're just moving it from last year, putting that money back to fund balance, and then expensing it this year.
But my concern is, will it mess anything up with the audit? If we have to delay it.
I would not suggest that you delay it, because it is almost completed.
No, but you see what I'm talking about though. If we have to pass both.
One question I have is, why do we, to me, this appears to be two different issues. I mean, I have some questions in regards to the additional public employee. And I'll be honest with you, I certainly support the towing lot. And I probably support the other portion also. But I think each of these needs to be discussed on their own merits. One of them is a tow lot, and one of them is an additional employee. One of them is a one-time expense, and the other is an annual expense that could go on for a period of time. So we're looking at two different kinds of expenses, and, you know, and I don't see how, I don't understand the rationale for putting them under one ordinance. Now, I understand the problems that we would have with delaying it, but I think each of them needs to be discussed on their merit.
I think what Holly is saying is, even if you do two votes, you're still amending one ordinance.
Correct.
So I think since I've been here, that's the way it's always been done.
We're amending one ordinance, but we're actually amending two different sections of the budget. Oh, not Ollie?
Not really.
Well, the budget was adopted in one ordinance. That's the way it was advertised, and that's the way it's submitted to the state for approval. It's by one ordinance. So, I mean, you can discuss it separately, for sure. I don't know if you were here when Karen had mentioned the reasoning behind the public works employee. We had advertised for 3 seasonal workers to help public works out in the summer. No one applied.
Yeah, she mentioned,
So-
that's the question I have. She
Right.
mentioned that at the special meeting.
Right.
that no woman, no summer help came in.
No.
One of the questions I have, and y'all can probably answer it for me, is we're nearing the end of summer.
Right.
And so this whole summer, we didn't have those additional summer employees. So now, why are we looking to hire a full-time employee? My question is, do we need that
And
full-time
we
employee?
advertised the position in June for the July start date, or mid-July,
For a
whatever,
full-time
for the
employee.
seasonal employees, and no one applied. So we ran it again, July 11th, no one applied. So having said that, when no one applied, she decided to take the money that was funding the 3 employees, and by just adding a few dollars more, a few thousand more to benefits.
$33,000, I think.
We budgeted 20,000, so just by adding some more to the seasonal part-time people, just adding another employee. I think we're still short an employee or 2.
Yeah,
I think
Maybe
works.
can answer that for me.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we were short an employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done some research. When we were still doing the trash in-house, we had 9 employees. When the trash was outsourced to Waste Industries, the plan was to keep 1 full-time person in the solid waste, the trash, which put us at 5, or would put us at 7 total at that time. Right now, we are down to 5 in public works and 1 in trash, which is a total of 6. So we've got actually 3 less than we had 4 years ago. In 2015 and 2014, we was paying out in salaries $270,000 in public works. This year, we're projected to pay out with the new employee $231,000. Without, it would be $206,000. So we're still well under where we was 4 years ago when we were still doing the trash. I know, I see public works out all the time, and I know they're shorthanded, from the mowing, the sides of the roads, culverts that they're cleaning out and putting in, sewer, the streets. And then, we just had a storm come through the other day, which a lot of tree limbs down, so, I mean, I personally see the need for the extra employee. But it's totally,
I can accept that explanation. I didn't get enough explanation at the special meeting.
And the funding of the position is being funded by the general fund because the money's been transferred from general to street to cover the salaries. So it's not affecting sewer, utilities or stormwater or solid waste at this point.
I hope y'all realize, I was looking at it from the aspect of, we had requested 3 part-time summer help. We didn't get them, but we continued to handle the job, and then now we're asking for 1 full-time. And to me, as the summer comes to a close, I was wondering whether or not it was necessary to have that full-time employee. If we'd already gone throughout the summer without the additional 3 helpers.
and not only that, we've had, we've had 2. One of the trash guys that was here was one got higher paid, that left, and he was replaced with like a $12 an hour guy. Same thing with public works director, when that changed, that salary went down as well. And I think the position she's looking to hire is a $12 an hour position.
That's my opinion.
So,
Is that correct?
I mean, it's basically adding $13,000 to the operating cost of the public works.
Well, if Commissioner Coleman would withdraw her second, I'll withdraw my motion. We'll start all over. If you don't want to separate it out.
Well,
I feel like I should separate it out.
I still think it's a bad idea separating it out. What I'm just concerned about now that we've come this far, I just don't want to mess up the audit if we vote. But I do understand how even Commissioner Doris feels about the 2 different ones and how he would be voting. So I understand why you
But
want to
what I would
separate
like
it
to
out.
see in the future, that when there is a budget
Yeah,
issue,
I have to agree.
when there's a budget or a request for a change of a budget item or line item, that those line items be addressed in separate ordinances instead of combined into one ordinance.
I have talked to Karen today, and I asked her from now on, anything to do with amending the budget, each item separate, one at a time, or we can take a vote.
I appreciate it. I like that. I think that works better. We can go
It's up to you.
but we can go ahead and vote on each of them separately.
You understand the situation with the tow lot thing? We did have to bid it out. The
Oh,
bids
yeah,
came in
yeah, I
at
understand,
10,000.
you have the total lot, I didn't.
But we amended the budget last year to
Right.
include the tow lot. Then we didn't get it done because of the bid requirements. So now we're having to amend the budget this year to get it done.
Yeah, and the auditors, and what the
Right.
city manager said, the auditors required it, said it'd be cleaner to do it this
Yes,
way.
yes. And we still don't have the fence And I don't think they've installed the
They've
fence yet, so
started.
it's not,
But we're in,
so it's not completed, but that will also generate some money also for the police department too.
but we're in, yeah, and, you know, we all went through that, but we're now in this 17-18 fiscal year, so yeah, I understand that.
Okay, and I do need some clarification on this. And you were saying that when we had the trash in-house, we had 9 employees?
Mhm.
And when we outsourced the trash, we had how many?
When we outsourced the trash, we immediately lost one.
Okay,
And then over a course of a little while longer, we lost another.
right.
And then we lost another one. So at some point, we got down to where we had 6 employees total.
But I guess what I'm thinking is since we outsourced the trash, that would incur us not needing as many employees, correct?
Exactly, but we had 9. 3 of them was in trash. Now we have 6,
Okay,
and 1 of those are in trash. So that leaves you 5 that was in, where you had
In public
6.
works.
You had 6 in public works.
Okay,
Now you only have 5.
okay, so that's what it was prior to.
Yes, if we add an employee
So we were-
now,
we're
we're
short.
back to where we should be, or where we were when
So
we
now why
outsourced.
did we dissolve them in the first place, I guess is my
We didn't
question.
dissolve them, they
Why-
just,
why
We
was
did,
that
they,
position
they
there?
left, the employees, we didn't cut the employees loose and let them go, we kept their jobs, we just put them in other areas of funding, and the fund, sewer fund, or whatever. So we kept them to keep their jobs. As they left, then the jobs were kind of repositioned in the funding for the salaries, whether it be streets, or stormwater, or sewer, and we just didn't replace the ones that left. Jerry was transferred from, he was a foreman, a working foreman. When he was promoted to public works, we literally lost to public works director, we lost a worker there, because he does a lot of administrative work now and out in the field too.
But it just, that's the question of what you just said, in the fact that we were hiring for the summer was the reason for the positions. And so now we're gonna take that 20,000 and go and hire another employee. But is there that amount of work that's needed now that the
Yes.
season's over, I guess is what I'm wanting to
And I
make
don't
sure.
know that, if y'all need to speak with Jerry or Karen and get more information, I don't know that. I don't know
I
the
have
answer to
spoke
that.
with both of them, I've spoke with Jerry and Karen, and they assure me that the need is there. There are projects, especially dealing with drainage, culverts, ditches, that they cannot get to because of the sewer stuff comes first, then streets, and then safety issues. So they assure me the concern is there.
Now, how many are in public works right now? 5 employees in public works.
There's 6 total, but one of those is dedicated to trash. One of them does the large item pickup, brush and large item pickup.
So we have 6, so we'll have 7. So
And the whole idea when we outsourced the trash was to have 7 employees, because we had 9. We was hoping that 2 would either go to
contractor.
the contractor, or I think we was down an employee shortly after the trash changed, and one of them just moved over into public works. One trash guy left as soon as the trash was outsourced, he moved forward, where he lived, so he went to work up there. And then finally, another employee left because of his health.
Well, you know, in getting back to what Commissioner Coleman said, I'm just wanting to make sure that we're just not rushing into hiring a full-time employee because we didn't get 3 part-timers in the summer too.
I don't think so. I know Karen has told me for a year that they're shorthanded in public works, that they've just been making do and getting by.
Okay, so let me ask you this then, so if we were to pass this, and then we do have that employee, because we have reduced quite a bit from what I'm hearing you say, with what the current salaries were and all that, to have that 13,000 is what we're doing more. Then this time next year, we can reevaluate to make sure that that employee is needed for the city. And I guess I'm kind of like Commissioner Bell, and just want to make sure that if we don't, that we're not rushing into this for another employee. That's my concern as well.
I don't think so. I think there's been a lot of thought put into it. You know, the special details like cleaning up the bridge, picking up the roadside trash, they very rarely have time to do it because they can't get away from their regular chores, the sewer and streets and mowing. They can't get away from it because they just don't have the manpower.
David, do you have any input in this? Do you know anything about this?
Is Jerry available?
Yeah, thank you.
Not today.
He's gone today, but we could always bring him to the work session
Yeah.
and you want to discuss it with him and, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
get
this was
some
brought up,
information from him.
it was brought up.
We are coming into winter and I don't know either, you know, what winter was.
Well, winter, there's always a bunch of little down in winter.
Yeah.
The only thing that was brought up that showed a little concern for a full timer was, since we outsource our trash and our grass. And I got hit with a question, you know, why do you need that if you've done this? So my input was, no, I went to see Karen and she basically told me what you had said this evening. That they probably could use and could very well use another employee, Public Works.
I'm telling you, what Public Works takes care of in this city, it's hard to do with 5 people and stay on top of everything. I mean, they are responsible for a lot of different items in the city.
Yeah. Personally, I'd like to see another employee.
You know, another thing we hadn't even talked about is they do all the maintenance on these buildings.
Yeah.
Not just this building, the community center, the fire hall, anything that needs done, they do it. They take care of the parks, they do all the mulching, you know, around the playgrounds and stuff like that. They go empty the trash cans and make sure that they get into the containers where the trash company picks them up. So they have a big list of stuff that they do. I'm surprised they've got by as good as they have, being down an employee for as long as they've been down.
Well, right now, what's on the floor is a motion and a second to separate these two on the vote. I guess we need to, if the mayor wishes to call for a vote on that motion, we can address the different issues.
But it still wouldn't affect the budget either way.
I'm at the point where I think, honestly, I just feel like maybe I need to remove my motion on that, but I'm thinking that I might want to table this to another meeting just to make sure.
If you'll remove the second.
I'm removing my second.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, then somebody's gonna have to make that.
I'd like to, you want,
Go ahead and make the motion, I'll say.
okay, I'd like to make a motion that we table this to a special call meeting to just review and make sure that this employee, that they understand that they are needed. So I would like to table that
At the time of our next work session, if you want to do it next week.
That's fine with me.
at the very next work session. And will that be okay with the auditors and all that? You know, I just want to make sure we're,
Do we need to do that? In other words, do we need to meet and decide on this month or can we wait till next month? At the work session.
Yeah, and I'm not real sure, I don't have a calendar, I don't know if the Monday, the September work session may fall on Labor Day. So we may need to look at that about moving the meeting anyway.
and we can even come in, I think the majority of us can come into a special call meeting if we need to get this done, but I need a little more information.
Well, I know she has the person in mind of who to hire, and I don't know what her time frame is on hiring that person. So,
Y'all usually hire at the first of the month, is that how you do it? First of the 15th, today's the 15th.
It's just, we have to go through the background information and the physical and all of that, so.
So how quickly can we do another special call meeting?
Would it be possible to do one next week?
It's 7 days.
I mean, I would think you would want her to be here to discuss it with her and Jerry, so,
yes.
So
So maybe
that's
towards the
up to
end of next week,
you want to just choose a day and.
maybe Thursday, next Thursday, something.
Thursday is what, the 24th?
Let's do it on, so.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's the 24th.
Okay. 24th, okay. I just understood.
What time?
I really doesn't have or even early today or that morning. What works best for
And
us.
we might have contact from Milton when he can be here.
Okay.
So if we can, let's do it on the 24th, but we'll have to say contingent upon everybody being here what time.
Is there a good time for you, morning, afternoon, or?
Right now, I'm open that day.
Okay.
I'm good on that day.
All right, so the motion is to table until the 24th. You made that motion.
I'll second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, it's tabled until the 24th. Item number 10, acknowledgement of debt service for the SRF loan related to the sewer investigation project. Call for motion.
You don't need a motion on this. This is just so we can reflect in the minutes that you, see the report before we submit to the state for approval on this state revolving loan.
Anybody have any questions?
Is this in regards to the fire truck?
No, this is the state revolving loan for the sewer project,
Okay.
that we got really, really cheap interest with a 10%, loan reduction.
56 or 57,000.
Right, yeah. We have to fill this report out and send it to the comptroller for approval.
Works for me.
No any questions?
No.
All right, item number 11, award sewer project bid to Compliance Enviro Systems. Call for motion.
Move that we award the bid to Compliance Enviro Systems LLC. Their bid amount being $72,763.40, and being the lowest and best bidder.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item number 12, approval of ordinance 17-680, rezoning 2164 Ted Doris Road, Robertson County map 125, parcel 208.02. Rezone from commercial C3 to commercial C1, and this is the first reading. Call for a motion.
I move that we approve ordinance 17-680, rezone 2164 Ted Doris Road, Robertson County map 125, parcel 208.02 from commercial C3 to commercial C1.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, a few things. I think that you might want to comment on this, because we had looked at the planning commission that looked at that whole area. And it made some, we got four of the planning commissioners here tonight also. And we were talking about that whole area. If you want to elaborate on that with the mayor, who wasn't at the meeting, body, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just a little background on this. Property owners came to us a few weeks back, and there was some question about allowable uses, and in particular what was allowed for the permitted use for the all-pack business on Ted Doris Road. The city executed a development agreement specifically allowing all-packs business with a vague description of their business activities that were actually, in staff's opinion, not just mine, but was a borderline of what was allowable in the C3 district. And refresh your memory, the C3 zoning district is commercial that's intended for high-traffic businesses, for instance, hotels, restaurants, essentially businesses with a lot of visitors, a lot of customers, and whatnot. And most of the C3 is in the Bethel Road I-65 area of the city. What was allowed to all-pack really had a minimal local customer basis, although they did have a component. So we discussed at length about other allowable uses that the city would recognize in there. And it became apparent to us that after 20 years of the C3 being in place, that the allowable uses may be a little more restrictive of some of the properties that that are off of the direct view of the high traffic corridors, for instance, Bethel Road and the interstate. And frankly, to take a shortcut around rewriting the C3 ordinance, I felt it was more appropriate and efficient to rezone to a C1 for this property. By the way, the applicant's family is here as well as an interested buyer for the parcel. They're making some proposals of future development on on those lands. To refresh your memory, Allpack was owned by a gentleman named Michael Sisk, who recently passed away. The widow's brother is here representing her on this matter. His name is Mike Price. He's here in the audience, Mr. Price here, along with their interested buyer. So essentially, we looked at it as what their proposed uses are, and it appears to be, it appears to satisfy both the C1 and the C3, but neither exactly, or as each ordinance is written. So in that case, we thought C1 was a little more liberal. By the way, there is a C1 parcel directly to the south for a business called All Things Chrome. And 2 parcels up the street on Ted Doris, there is a light industrial parcel that was zoned, although it's vacant. And at the top of the road, you have pit excavating, which is also zoned C1. So as far as the compatibility matter goes and some of the comparable uses up there, well, actually, compatibility-wise from the zoning aspect, C1 would not be unreasonable. As far as the uses go, there is a broad spectrum of uses on that road right now. And in fact, I did ask the applicant and the interested buyer that, to come in case you all have questions for them. The Planning Commission is looking at the Ted Doris Road corridor as far as now 20 years after the C3 was enacted, what would be appropriate for the visioning and how the city can move that forward from the development and commercial aspect. So I know I've thrown a lot at you, but the Planning Commission was unanimous in their recommendation to you to rezone this to a C1 with the direction to take a look at the C3 language as to how we could ease off some of the more stringent restrictions for the uses while still emphasizing the desire to have hotels or restaurants in that area there. Although in reality, at the very end of Ted Doors, I don't see a Cracker Barrel or a McDonald's coming in, or even a hotel next to a construction company. So that being said, we're kind of limited with what uses are really practical out there. And I'll also throw out there as well that while the city's vision some 20 years ago was for this high traffic commercial, the city, in my opinion, is not necessarily held up their end in improvements to promote those kinds of businesses. The road is in very questionable shape, of which half of it's probably gravel. We don't have adequate sanitary at the property lines, although it is nearby. And then we're further challenged by White House utility districts not having enough water for what we envision out there. And frankly, the city doesn't have the funds to make those improvements. So what's being proposed right now is almost somewhat of an office service-oriented business concept for this particular parcel, would fit within the conditions of the road, within the utility that's in the ground right now, as well as the available water.
The Planning Commission did make a unanimous recommendation for this change, and there was also some dreams expressed during that Planning Commission meeting about extending Ted Doris Road all the way to Swift Road, and actually building that area, starting to concentrate on that area that has a secondary artery similar to what you have in Knoxville, that road that runs parallel to I-40, where you have all the businesses, and also in Jackson, there's a road similar to that. So if you're familiar with those 2 locations, the city of Jackson made a road parallel to I-40 West that has a lot of Cracker Barrels, hotels, et cetera. And Knoxville has, what is that exit there? I can't remember the name of the exit, but where the Cracker Barrel is, Campbell Station Road. And you come up and you take left and go almost parallel. And so there's that possibility of looking at, which, that may be just a dream, that we may never have the funds, but if we could run something from exit 104 to 108, up there, you're talking about development that we really develop. And plus, that would also be, if you take a look at the planning regions that we're being asked to look at by Robertson County and Sumner County, and the fact that White House is wanting to shrink their planning district area, that would put it within our planning district if we want to look at it that way.
Well, and the other thing we need to consider is we just went to a meeting with TDOT, and they are getting ready to take 8 years to connect Rivergate to Kentucky, 6 lanes with the interstate. So they're expecting more traffic. We're supposed to have a 70% growth in Robertson County alone with growth to the year 2040. And Sumner County is not as high.
I think we need to concentrate
So-
our growth in Robertson County.
Yeah, and then not only that, though, we just spoke to White House Utilities, but they're talking about expanding the water across the interstate in all that section. So whatever we decide here, we need to be mindful of those things that are coming. You know, that is a possibility,
I was going to
huge
say,
possibility.
the planning commission, I guess we have a forum here right now. The planning commission has really dove into those things. Even though these are dreams, these are items that we have asked Mike to go ahead and take a look at and see what he can come up with, and see if there's any possibility of doing what we're talking about, which would include the water, roads.
And if I might interject or add one more comment in, there's more to the economic picture than just sales tax. There's also property tax, which of course, commercial properties pull in an assessment on 40% as opposed to 25% for residential. Secondly, too, if we're talking multiple businesses being located out there and adding somewhere in the neighborhood of, say, another 50,000 square feet of buildings on this 1 6-acre parcel, which is certainly reasonable, the employee count alone would and the increased traffic in that area would be beneficial to the city as well. So there's a number of different angles to look at this to see what I think is value to allowing a more liberal use on
And see,
property.
we did add the sewer underneath the road. We did pay for that.
It is there, and we can have another conversation another time about some of the ideas that we're having now about how to promote connection to that sewer without a $200,000 expense of building a lift station or pump station. That we believe that with, short of a hotel or a very large restaurant, the businesses up there could theoretically connect using a duplex system with a 4-inch line on Ted Doris Road. And it would support all the properties up there with the exception of a hotel or a very large restaurant today. So we've looked at downsizing the need for sanitary improvements. All they have to do is run a 4-inch down the west side of Ted Doris Road, and that would give all of the properties, like I said, except for a hotel, connection into the sewer system.
But we will have to improve the road system. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be city cost.
Yeah, and we need to look at that.
And as far as I know, that's not even on the 2 to 3 year priority list at this time. I would recommend that we reevaluate
Yeah, we're
that
gonna
if that's our vision for development out there.
So when we do our planning and our goal setting, that's something we all definitely need to be mindful of. For sure. Okay, that's all I have.
But back to the original ordinance, we do have a motion in a second.
Do you gentlemen, have y'all want to add? All right, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Number 13, approval of ordinance 17-681, amending chapter 90 sections 8 and 213. First reading, call for motion.
I move that we approve ordinance 17-681, amending chapter 90, sections 8 and 213 of the municipal code with regard to what's the immediate industrial district. Is that what it is, Mr. Lawler?
That is correct, immediate industrial district I2, as opposed to LI1, light industrial 1.
This was at the planning commission gave a unanimous recommendation for this policy.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Resolution 17-R-14, a resolution in the city of Millersville, Tennessee, authorizing the assistant city manager / recorder to renew the invocable letter of credit from the Farmers Bank in the amount of $250 to the CMC. Call for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve resolution 17-R-14.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Item number 14, citizens' comments. Anyone like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Can I move forward?
Yes. I need your name and address.
Jeanette Wiseman, 2019 Next Drive.
Just show us all your drive.
I do have a statement that I can't possibly get through in 3 minutes.
You just talk. You would-
Okay. I do have some evidence. It might be better if I show this after so you can understand, and I'll explain it. And I left an important letter in the car, but I can retrieve that. I appreciate this, I'll explain the reading, yes. I appreciate this time allotted to bring to the commissioner's attention what is amounting to abuse of power within Millersville government. Please forgive my reading this statement, but wish my experiences and feelings to be conveyed without gaps. Quick backstory about me, which the city management is aware of. I moved here from a 2,500 square foot home to a house half the size. During my years, I have suffered trauma via circumstances to the extent to have developed PTSD and severe chronic depression. I also suffer back pain following 2 surgeries, arthritis in both knees, chronic hypertension, to name a few. We'll try to get through this. It's been very hurtful and painful here. Therefore, I can only do heavy work for a short time before severe pain or exhaustion sets in. I am a single woman on my own trying to exist on a fixed income. After having lived in several areas and counties, I can attest without question that North Point neighborhood is the most hateful, insensitive, non-caring place ever. There's a self-appointed patrol that chooses certain residents they wish to cause significant problems. Some of us are under constant surveillance and reporting to city codes while others do whatever. Personally, I'm an enemy of this regime when I raised issues about HOA finances and other activities concerning inconsistent and illegal bylaw procedures. I have spent thousands of dollars and much time and energy toward coming and living in peace. Instead of applauding and commending my efforts, I'm constantly ridiculed and berated by misnomers such as crazy, hoarder, lazy. When the North Point clique wants to cause the most damage and stress to an individual's life, they call upon their strong arm, Brandon Head. Since his promotion, or so I heard, Mr. Head has used his leverage against those who have not met a certain HOA officer's contempt, who have met with a certain HOA officer's contempt. No one in North Point has ever asked to help me or make my life easier. I clarified that by stating recently, one new HOA officer, Paula Shelton, have letters from her, has and is assisting me in cleaning up beyond imagination, which is providing my motivation to continue improvement. I have been forced into court 3 times with this August 14th citation, which you will note is the 4th time. I had left messages for Mr. Head to explain some of these citations because they weren't legible. He would not respond to me, has not responded to me except by citations. Amazingly, on the 2nd and 3rd dates, court dates, I was the only person appearing in court cited by the Codes Department. In a city with multiple code violations, I found this appalling. In March, after working a late night shift, I was awakened by continuous banging on my front door. There stood Brandon Head, accompanied by a Millersville police officer. The officer told me it was good I answered because he was about to use his police knock. With no warrant or serious crime, was he going to bust through my door? The intimidation and threat was real. Mr. Head proceeded to inform me I was being cited for his determination of open storage. He lashed out at me for costing him personally $7 and change for a letter I never received. Visibly angry over this, and as though an affront to him personally, I was informed that I would be given 10 days to make only my front yard compliant with his judgment. I was told my neighbors are constantly complaining. No review of my file in the Codes Department and discussions with neighbors do not reveal this. The only complainant was from self-appointed HOA control leader Jan Lohman. From reading these complaints, it seems Karen Miller has an unprofessional relationship with Ms. Lohman, although Ms. Miller seemed at the time to have no real knowledge about North Point and its problems. My question is, why is there a file on me at City Hall? Do all those who are cited have a file? Cases and or citations which have been resolved forced me into court, penalized and fined. And once again, I am cited for court next week. The legal term double jeopardy means a person cannot be convicted over and over when a case has been resolved. Yet Brandon Head does so while committing perjury, making untrue comments. In court, I have had panic attacks close to fainting due to the unbelievable miscarriage of justice. It probably wouldn't have mattered to the city judge if I had complete control over my emotions because I was not allowed to present evidence or defend myself. When I was found guilty of cleaning my yard, the judge and Brandon Head did what they could to humiliate me and treat me as a felon. I was admonished by the judge that if I could not come up with the fine and pay it at designated time, I would have a warrant out for me and jailed, which I've never been arrested or jailed. 64 years, not been. During this so-called hearing, Brandon Head was allowed to submit pictures from years ago, one from a yard sale. I have never been cited or had any discussion about my backyard until Mr. Head brought photos as evidence. My backyard has had a 6-foot privacy fence surrounding it. Mr. Head invaded my privacy in April when he unlatched my privacy gate, entered my backyard, and took photos including my bedroom entrance. Then those photos were filed at City Hall. Since my front yard looked like this, and I will show you the photo, on that particular day, he apparently wanted to swing opinion in his favor. He went so far as to photograph a bucket and a storage bin on my front porch, not visible by neighbors. Not to mention, he had given me incorrect data for the revisit, never corrected except on his copy, and was a day or 2 early at that. I had every intention of removing these 2 items from the front after meeting a friend for her birthday. Mr. Head gave me no audience, no discussion, no phone call, etc. What he did know is that I was at the Waffle House at the time he returned. He has previously informed me that he knows when I'm home or at the Waffle House because he looks at my car. Seems as though that is faulty. To my surprise, upon returning home, there was a citation taped to my front door stating I had to appear in court. I called Mr. Head to inform him much of the citation was illegible, which I have. He never responded and did not clarify anything. I was eventually fined $154, for which I was told needed to be brought into compliance, which was already brought into compliance. This additional stress, scrutiny, bullying, and negative environment is causing serious adverse effects on my health. My healthcare provider has documented the anxiety and stress living in this neighborhood and city has caused. Due to this factor, I now must take additional medication. It is granted heads of Tuesday's judgment, along with the apparent approval of the city manager, that my yard is an ongoing problem, and that I never complained, which is an outright lie. I have been compliant with every discussion, request, and fines. The problems with my stuff is ongoing to the point that I will fix it as I can, or further measures taken. The freshly mowed field behind me has mice housing in boxes of documentation. I will no longer live in this field, and must go through each box to discern what is important or salvageable. I refuse to proceed with this nastiness inside my home, so the front yard is my best option. If I were not cited and dragged into court every time I attempt to get this situation under control, spend time going through this time and again, explaining to whoever wants to make my life a living hell, I might have a moment to bring a positive solution. My home should be one of peace, solace, and refuge. I dread every time I try to better myself in my environment. When I have been consistently embarrassed, treated rudely, and have legal action taken. In the last court hearing, Brandon Head's animosity toward me was clearly apparent. He told the judge that my property is a constant problem and that I choose never to be compliant. Again, a lie, again, perjury. Mr. Head angrily stated, "This stops today because neighbors constantly call about me. He is sick of it." When the judge learned of Mr. Head's discomfort and apparently working to distribute citations to me, I was found guilty and fined. I struggle financially and in no position to continue countering these false innuendos by Millersville City Management. My physical and mental well-being is at stake. Therefore, my request to this commission is to bring justice and an understanding of my position. This harassment, discrimination, intentional evasion of privacy, and stalking, in the words of Brandon Head, must stop today. If it's not within your realm of responsibility as city commissioners to demand the Coast Department desist in causing additional harm, it will go to another level. In addition, and I suppose it is legal to not respond, return calls, or attempt to negotiate a solution preventing a citizen to wish he or she never did live here. It is a matter of morality, ethical standards, good character, respect, and a public relations skill to negotiate instead of enjoying punishment. Mr. Head seems to no longer possess any of these positive traits of late. Earlier, we did have a relationship of discussion and agreement, but that is no longer true. Seems as though this needed promotion, if so, has turned Mr. Head into nothing more than a bully to single medically challenged senior citizen women. Here on my phone are photos taken on various dates indicating codes violations within our community. My complaints were addressed in an email to Karen Miller and given them to Office Manager Deborah. Following the first court hearing, as I was reviewing my file, Brandon Head came into the office as I was going through the file. I asked him why my complaints were not acted upon. He told me I had sent my emails to Karen Miller, not to him, which he knew about the email, but he didn't enforce anything. So I gave the information that day to Deborah, the office manager, for submission. As you can see today, some of the complaints I noted have continued to be unenforced. It seems as though, although I pay taxes to live in this community, which should provide a voice and opinion, city management is such that it chooses who should be so respected. This is where the police officer was knocking at my door with Brandon Head. It's dated March the 20th, and he says he'll be back on March 20th, which is incorrect. He never corrected my copy. He never talked to me about it. He never returned my phone call. He told me 10 days would be not the 30th, but the 31st, because he came after the 30th, of the 20th. And I count 10 being the 31st. Then this was taped to my door. It's illegible. I had cataract surgery. I can't read that except I have to go to court. I can't read any of the paragraph where it says whatever the complaint is. I asked information on what this says, and like voicemail, whenever you call me, and he would respond to me, never did. So I came to court, pleaded not guilty the first time, and the second time it says I specified a misstatement, and I was fined for past behaviors.
This one says it's open storage.
And that's the complaint. That's I'm putting at my house, it's open storage, it's not storage.
Ms. Wiseman,
Yes, sir.
is this court case pending in city court right now? Is that citation pending in city court right now?
The second one is
It's scheduled to be heard.
next week,
Okay.
in non-guilty court.
Okay, there's, under the Constitution of the United States and Tennessee, there's a separation of powers. We're the legislative and executive branch of city government here in Millersville.
Right,
And the judicial branch is Judge Lowe, and that's the judicial branch. We cannot be interfering with the judicial powers of this city at this time. And, let me just say this, that if you're dissatisfied with Judge Lowe's opinion, you do have the right to appeal it to the Sumner County Circuit Court.
right,
And I'm sure he told you that.
no,
Okay.
but I will.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is, just so that you're aware of it, you have to do that within 10 days
Right,
of the verdict. So obviously, it sounds to me like you've talked to the attorney, and you're aware of these facts.
I noticed that.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is, you're asking this branch of government, us as commissioners, and the mayor as the executive, and the city manager as the executive, to interfere with the judicial branch, and that is unconstitutional, both under the United States Constitution as well as the Tennessee Constitution.
Well, I have constitutional rights too, so.
I did not say that you did not. I'm telling you what we have the authority and can do. So I just wanted to point those out to you before we went any further. Anything was said, to give you the thought that we cannot interfere with what is pending in front of Judge Lowe.
You
And
don't have,
I'll be honest with you, I will not interfere, and I will counsel this branch of government not to interfere at this time. Now, as far as Mr. Head, I'm sure the mayor will be speaking and will be investigating it, and I think all of us will. That's a different issue, but I just want to make sure that you know that we cannot do anything about this citation. Not under Tennessee law or United States law. And as far as me personally, I am not going to interfere with the judicial process. Okay? But we will investigate and we will talk to to the city manager, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I just want you to know that she had called me, and we were at a point I did not know exactly what needed to be done. So I did say that you, as a citizen, have the right to come before the board and speak.
And
as
that's
far as
fine, and I'm
the
glad
issue
you
that's
did, because I think,
So that way we are aware, you know.
I think, Ms. Wyden, I think the issue that you raised is something that we needed to know about. And I
Yes.
promise you, I think we're all gonna look into it.
well, that was my
But,
point here. I
okay.
know that you can't,
Yeah,
Fit
but
into
by
the
the
law.
same token, please don't ask us to interfere with the judicial process.
I'm not. I haven't done so.
I just want to get that clear.
I appreciate that. That's a different.
I know she brought it to my attention too, and showed me some of it, but not all of it, and explained some of it to me. Of course, I didn't see all the paperwork. She didn't have the time to tell me about it. But I was,
But I'm glad
she
that
did
you
make it
let
work.
us know that as well, because I did not know legally what we can.
But you do have that right to, I'm gonna, years ago, I served as city judge in Millersville. And, I had usually on code violations, I would be appealed to circuit court, that's what the judge board used to back in the 80s. And he would hear those appeals. And Sumner County Circuit Court will hear the appeals, and they'll schedule it for you, and you'll be heard in front of a different judge and hold your trial.
I understand. But I'm glad that you're here so that we can help direct what steps need to be taken next.
Because I knew that, but I didn't know what y'all's jurisdiction was. I know that you can't, decide a case, or
Yeah, we
a case
can't
brought
decide.
before you, you're not legal.
But the issue that you brought up about Mr. Head and a few of the other things, I think that is within
Yes,
our
I was hoping.
scope that we'll be looking at, and I'm sure Commissioner Coleman and Commissioner Doris have already spoken to the city manager. I know that Mayor Laster and I, as well as Commissioner Gregory, will say something also. Because we don't want anybody, any citizen, to feel that they're being victimized by anybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll get off.
And that was my point being, that I believe it needs to be brought to someone's attention, because this has been ongoing, and it continues. It doesn't seem to ever stop until I stop. This is a letter from, that I left another one in the car from the lady that's helping me, that's on our HOA, just as a good reference as to what we have been doing. We have actually been working hard on my yard and that type thing. We had to quit because of the extreme heat, and she has asthma, can't work in heat, neither can I. Rain, heat, bad weather, whatever, we could not continue until soon we can. This was,
Can we get a copy of that letter?
Sure.
Or
and there's another one.
you can see that someone is trying to help.
I was a good copy of the one that she read through.
Yeah.
And it's not,
Yeah, maybe-
Ms. White, one more thing out to you.
Sure.
The city of Millersville will not and does not enforce HOA rules and
I know.
regulations.
I know that.
If Mr. Head is presenting citations, it's because he's violations of city ordinances that are applicable to everybody. So I just want to point out that.
Federal law constantly can get its attention.
Yeah.
That's what I'm pointing out.
Okay.
This one instance gets attention consistently. I left one of her letters in the car and that's the one she wanted to present to the judge before I was fined. And she thought I was gonna turn it over. I thought she was gonna turn it over, so no one turned it over.
So you will get a copy of that letter.
It's in the car, and I'll get that for you. This was in May. That's from Brandon. I don't even remember that one. I don't know what that's about. That's not. Can I show you the pictures?
Are we allowed to see?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, I just want to make sure we do what's
We
legal.
just came
But
back.
I just want to make sure that every citizen knows they have
Yeah,
a
no,
voice.
yeah, we just,
And they can come before this commission at any time they have.
yeah,
any
and I
concerns.
think we should, yeah, we can look at the pictures, we can listen to everything that's done. I just want to point out that we as a body cannot overrule the judge, that is only allowed if she appeals it to circuit court, and that's where it needs to be done. But the issues that we're looking at is there must be a basis to cause or discontent with Mr. Head. So we're looking at a personnel issue. That's what we're saying.
Well, it sounds like a breakdown in communications.
Maybe.
Is what it sounds like.
I just wanted to point out that I do believe if she does appeal it to Sumner County, she has to pay the appeals to us, and we pay the court, for the appeal. I think it's like $250.
Just an appeal bond.
It's an appeal bond, but she pays us and we pay, I think we have to,
It has to be posted with circuit court.
yeah. I think it has to come from us, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
about
usually, I
those.
don't know if it's changed. I haven't done
Yeah,
appeals
used to on
forever.
the traffic citation that came through us. I don't know if that's changed, but it's like $250, I think,
It's an appeal
for the
bond.
appeal. Yeah.
Or if you're a pauper, you can apply for a pauper bond. And you can do that at the Southern County Circuit Court.
Okay. Thank you. This is the yard that was fined $154.
That's what it was when the citation was written.
That's what it was on the day he returned, on the 30th of March.
Well, it's,
or April, whatever the 30th was.
well, it's hard to know what we're talking about because Brandon's not here with all the documentation that he has.
That, this is what he stated, and then when he, had a police officer came, I said, what exactly are you talking about? What is the problem here? He goes, all of this needs to be cleaned up. That is my front yard, he was saying my front yard. That's my front yard,
Okay, so I moved a couple pictures.
that's fine. It's still my front yard, or the side yard, showing the side yard as well.
Is that a Goodlettsville London address?
Yes.
Yes.
Can we, could we take this up as a special call meeting? And have Brandon bring all of his stuff, because, you know, we can talk to her and find out her side, but there's, you know, there's another side to it as well.
Would that be necessary to have a special call meeting for?
Well, we
that
gotta have a
issue?
special call meeting for the.
Correct, right.
So what I'm saying is there a way that we can just discuss it during that meeting on the 24th?
Well, but again, though, we don't wanna be, we can't,
I'm not talking about the ticket. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the issues that she says she's being employed from the city employee. I'm talking about those issues.
My recommendation would be that you discuss it with Karen and Brandon, and then possibly you guys get back, you can discuss it, but I wouldn't be bringing Brandon back before you
right,
in an open meeting to discuss a case that he is,
When is the court
Decided in
for
court.
that ticket?
The 24th,
The 24th?
which y'all are planning a meeting, but
That
there's
would-
court day that day.
That would be before our meeting, so it would be done, it'd be dealt with.
We may not want to have a special meeting, we may want to do it at a work session, but I think what I'm saying is that the issue that is before us is a citizen is alleging that one of our employees is being rude.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's the issue I would like to
It's a
address.
personnel issues do not need to be addressed in a public forum. They need to be addressed.
Then my question would be, how does this body look at Brandon's evidence? Do we do it one-on-one with Brandon, and then all five of us?
And we can look at his evidence, and essentially what we would probably have to say to Mr. Head is that there are allegations that you have treated one of our citizens rudely. How do you answer that?
There's allegations that happens every other day.
Exactly.
I got a phone call today from one of her neighbors for basically the same thing.
And essentially, we would ask Brandon that you have a basis for issuing these citations and tell us what that basis was. And then he would show you his evidence that he had, whether he has evidence or not, of the basis for issuing the citation. And then the thing that I think the question I would ask him was, how did you treat Ms. Wiseman? Did you treat her politely? And that would be the question. The question I have is the issue in regards to the yard and the citation. We can't decide whether Ms. Wiseman is guilty or not guilty of having a messed up yard. Okay. That's for Judge Lowe to decide. And if necessary, if she appeals it, for Judge Henderson.
Well, then my opinion would be that all of this needs to go to Karen, because Karen is the one that deals with personnel issues,
Correct.
not this board.
Right. We need to make her aware that we're gonna follow up with Karen, the city manager, to make sure that Karen, because Karen answers to this board, looks into this very, very carefully and discusses it with Brandon Head, who is an employee, and she is the manager of the employees. She is the appointing authority of the employees of this city. And we will discuss it with her. I'm sure Mayor Lasker will have a harder discussion with her about it.
Okay.
Yeah. He's already done it. Follow up. So essentially what
Well, I did a month and a half ago.
You're up on a whole lot more than us. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't skirt into somebody else's lane.
Well, it was documentation, I didn't.
No, that's fine, and I'm glad you did, because I would not
Because
have
I
known
need to
about it.
know some things that are going on, and I would like to see the ratio of complaints in our neighborhood. I'm telling you, there's a problem person in our neighborhood. Y'all can't do anything about it, you have no jurisdiction to do anything about it. I'm just letting you know, there's a very problem person, and she goes to codes to cause trouble for certain individuals. This, I know this from talking to other neighbors, I know what she's calling me.
We can't address personnel.
I know that, but you can't have your city employee called upon because she can't do anything to me. As an HOA official, she can't do anything to me.
What you're asking us to do is to make sure that the personality in that area that seems to be zeroing in on you is not in cahoots with Brandon Head and bringing these citations. That he's not using his personal relationship with this person to cause you undue hardship.
She levels many complaints.
But by the same token, question that I would have, and what I would ask, whether you had, and I'm sure Judge Lowe asked this question, were there abandoned cars in your front yard? Were there other things in your front yard that violated the city ordinances as far as keeping the yard clean? Were there or were there not? That's a question.
Oh, you're asking me a question. At certain times, it was never open storage, it was never storage. I was cleaning my house.
Well, how long were those items out there in the front yard? 30
Days.
days, 60 days?
This recent one was like a few days.
But what about the ones in the past in the winter?
It could have been longer than,
A month?
not after he discussed it with me.
Well, before you discussed it with me,
I don't recall, sir, because there's been several. I don't recall the times.
I mean, I guess my question is, there has to be a catalyst for all this to happen, and I'm trying to go back in time
I understand.
to what that catalyst was, and whether that catalyst was that this particular personality got, did this personality address you personally and ask you to remove these items from your front yard?
No,
Okay. She just went directly to Mr. Head.
yes.
Did he ask you originally, did he come to you originally before issuing any citation? Did he come and talk to you about the front yard?
And we worked it out.
And you
I
worked it out?
I complied with everything he asked.
And did you come back and say thank you?
Yes, it
Okay,
still looks good or whatever. I
okay.
had to say.
And so then, did those items reaccumulate in the front yard?
Items,
Or,
when I'm cleaning out my house, that's where I have to go, is the front yard, because I can't work in the backyard, it's too hot. It's just simply too hot. So
so the second time that these items were in the front yard, that's when Mr. Head came up and said, Ms. Wiseman, I thought we had this worked out the first time, and now it's back up here again. I'm gonna have to issue a citation, is that what happened?
he did discuss it with me, he just issued the citation.
But it was after he had gotten you to comply with the complaints originally, and then when you.
Years ago. This didn't come up with Mr. Head, this lack of communication this Bonnie talks about, did not happen initially. It's within this year, it's really been horrible. And I get no feedback, I get no discussion at all.
How long?
I think
Over the years, how long have you lived at this location?
8 years.
Okay. Over the past 8 years, how often have you and Mr. Head visited with one another about this issue?
Mr. Head probably 3 or 4.
Okay, and the person that had that job before Mr. Head, how many times did you do anything?
Once that I remember. It's all in my file.
Okay, so 4 or 5 times the city has addressed this issue with you. Okay. But this issue you're telling us only comes up when you're cleaning your house and put all these items out in front of it.
Okay, yard sale.
Okay.
And one of his photos is of the yard sale.
I just want to get that clear in my mind.
Yeah, I'm not calling it open storage because I don't store it out there. I'm in the process of either throwing stuff away or packing it differently,
Was it there for about 10 days, day and night?
Yes. or less, or less. This last time it was less. and I can get that letter, and here's that. to Joel.
He made
You
a
got a
copy, you got a copy?
Yes.
Okay, yep, so you can keep that one and just go get that other letter and then give me a copy of that.
Okay,
And we will.
did y'all get that other?
Yes, it's in there.
Oh,
We've put it there.
okay. Let me go right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your attention. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Larry Page, 105 Echo Lane. I have a question about, ordinance number 9, number 9. The, I don't know, about the public works and land. Do we still have the same amount of work whether this gentleman does or does not get hired?
Yes.
So, and we have the money to pay this employee or potential employee? I was just wondering that. Y'all do a great job, that's a wasted table. You need to put some food on this table. Thank y'all.
Anyone else? All right, moving on, commissioners' comments, David?
I have one.
I'll sit there, so.
Yep.
I'd like to apologize to the board, I was late, and I did let time slip away. I'll try to do better next. I appreciate Bonnie giving me her notes and Holly gave me her notes, so she filled me in, but I do apologize to the board for being late.
You were having fun.
While everybody's here, then would it be a good time to set up this next
Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
that's on my list.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's on my list.
Does anybody have a
Well, I-
preferred time?
Oh, yeah, sorry. 24th is the Thursday, next Thursday.
Keep in mind, there is court in
I
here.
think it's,
I'm good during the day.
Yeah, it starts at 1.
1, 2, and 3, 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Let's do it in the morning.
We do
I
it,
do
we
it
can do
nine.
it at 5, we can do it at 9.
I'd rather do it in the morning.
I
I'd
rather
rather
do it in the morning.
I read it in the morning, I get up tomorrow.
9 o'clock?
Yes.
Nine
o'clock.
Yes,
9 o'clock.
All right, 9 AM
Y'all gonna have to have coffee.
and donuts.
9 a.m.
on Thursday.
I'll waive the stipulation that.
Y'all let somebody leave prayer?
Right now.
We want sausage. Sausage and eggs.
Okay, and I do have one comment that I want to state. I am still extremely aggravated. We had an accident on the interstate on Friday, we have an accident on the interstate on Monday, and here they come on Bethel Road, we're having to send the police department out there again to direct traffic. I still believe we need a red light there at Bethel Road and 31. You cannot get in and out at 5 o'clock traffic. It is horrendous, and it's only going to continue to get worse.
We can put one there.
We-
We gotta pay for it.
Well, it's some kind of study, we need to go back to TDOT, I have got their phone number. I have their phone number, by golly, and somebody needs to call, I mean, this has gotta be fixed, it's just constant.
It's gonna open up a big can of worms.
And why is that?
Because those 2 streets will have to be shut down. Put a red light on. They will not put a red light in those 2 side streets open at the highway.
And I witnessed them one afternoon going home, going both directions, coming off of Bethel Road.
What two sides?
Behind your house.
Milton's house?
Yes, they were lined up trying to
You
get
don't want
around.
that, do you, Milton?
No, I'm gonna
But,
tell you what.
but I'm just saying, if we have the red light, then that won't occur as much. I mean, we may have to suffer with that for a little while, but at least if we'll have the red light, people can get out and we can move that traffic. It's just
TDOT has already
terrible.
said they will not put a red light there with those 2 side streets open. They won't do it.
But what I'm saying is that if we get the red light and use those side streets while they're putting up the red light so that we can still have
Yeah,
traffic there,
you can do that.
then we can close them
Okay.
afterwards. Then we can do that and not because they won't have to do that flow on there because it just gets so jammed up, they can't get out.
Maybe we can give that lane, that road lane to Mr. Dorsey and pay taxes
Well, I just had it surveyed, I own the road anyway.
on it. Okay.
But what I'm saying is, I know what goes up down that road. I've had, Papa John is a regular customer through there. I've had, ambulances come through there. I've had fire trucks come through there. It's not just whenever they have a wreck on the interstate. That road is used constantly. I see it all the
But
time.
you still want that road even if we got a red light, or do you not want that road?
I want the road open.
You want it
Because you
open?
stop to think that 9 acres in behind me right there, when you close that road, you just cut off all their road frontage.
No, you're not closing the road, you're just making it a dead end.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah,
making
you're
it a through road. The road
It's
is
just
still
where
right.
they can't go through it.
Yeah.
That's
They just
all we're
can't
saying.
pull out
It'll
on
still be
Bethel Road.
there.
It will still be a drive.
Yeah.
No, it would be a dead end street.
No, you have to close it off, man, no way around it. I mean, if you close it off, then we keep any traffic going through there, correct?
Not from going completely through.
Not completely through. That's all they're saying. The road would still be there, but it would just, it wouldn't
Close on one
connect.
end.
Yeah, on one end it'll close. It's not gonna be, but they'll still be able to have access to
Well,
it.
then if you close in on Bethel Road over there and leave the other end open, then they'll be going through my driveway.
But then we'll close it over on 31.
Yeah, close on the other end.
I'm just saying, you close that road back there, if you've got 9 acres of property back there and you lose that road frontage,
You won't lose the road.
How you
You
gonna-
ain't gonna close both ends.
Not closing the road.
They'll still have access to it.
well, I'm not in favor of closing that road. I mean, no means.
Well, I'm just telling you, TDOT will not put a red light in with those two roads open on both ends.
Well, if that's the case, we need to close Woody Lane, because you're gonna put a red light right there at Bethel Road, that's gonna cause that road right there to back up too. Black Rig and all the rest of them, so, you know, that don't make any sense to me.
It has nothing to do with backing up traffic. It has to do with when the light's red and you come down Bethel Road, there will be a certain amount of people to miss the red light. They will skirt down the little side roads and pull out in front of.
Why don't we ask TDOT to do another study, because it all depends on whether TDOT wants to come up with the, $200,000 and $300,000 worth of light there.
They just done a study, not,
And then we
that's
just
a
take
year and a
these
half
that-
worth.
So let's look at that study, and,
We can add it to a work session.
yeah, and we'll discuss it. Look
I
at this.
just see with the amount of people that are coming and the growth that we're having, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah, it's gonna be worse.
It's just gonna continue to get worse, and you're not gonna be able to come out on Bethel Road, not just with an accident, just with the regular flow of traffic.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I can tell when there's a wreck on 65 just coming out of Colwyn Road,
I know,
because I'll sit there and work down there. And everybody's coming this way, as soon as that line gets, as soon as I can see the last car there, everybody's coming this way.
Well, I live there, so I do this all the time. It's like yesterday morning. We came out of that road and it was clear that there's that big wreck. And we're gonna make a right. We're always making a right there on 31. We take that little way. Is that yours?
And behind my house,
There's a mobile home there.
No, that's,
that's the lane.
I had some lane there, we're gonna make right. I've never made that left there, but I see people do it. It goes around behind. That's your house there on the front. Beautiful place. But I'm thinking, I would miss the red light probably every time. You're right. I'd probably take that little way
I've watched them do it.
and go off there and just go off down there. Well, why not? I mean, it's ridiculous. You're sitting there for a half a day trying to get out. You really could get stuck there. And when you pull up to that 31W, the white line, the state, it's back where it's supposed to be, where you stop. If you actually stop behind the white line, like you're supposed to, forget being able to really get a good view of the traffic to the right. You cannot do it. There's a big,
Big bank right there.
there's a bank there. In addition, on that bank, there's a cane break, or some sort of a cane break, or whatever it is. It's going up there, and it's got the thing blocked. I actually said something to Devin about that. She's gonna get come up there and see if they can remove that, but it's still there. And I think that's on the state. I don't know that that's.
Well, there's a telephone pole right there too.
Yeah, so it's just a bad place all the way around.
it's just.
Well, see, that road is, we're talking about Denson Lane and Florence Lane in behind my house.
Yeah.
That right there was a little highway. That was the main highway from Nashville to Louisville.
I figured.
All that was there way before any of this other stuff was ever here. Because my house was built in 1940 and it faces 31W.
Yeah.
But the house in behind me actually faced Bethel Road, Louisville Highway.
Right.
So it was built before my house was built. Of course, it's gone now. It burned. But, like I said, I'm not in favor of it because I know what goes up that traffic. Like I say, the fire trucks go up through there, the ambulance goes through there, and Papa John's is continuously going through there. They're every afternoon. And they work everything on GPS.
Well, I hear you.
All right, well, it's on a work session. Is there any other commissioners' comments? Holly, you have anything?
I just wanted to bring to your attention, I set the flyer that's been posted on my front door of City Hall about Monday, the 21st, for the solar eclipse. the business office, we're gonna be closed here at City Hall, and all the employees are gonna be helping with the event at the community center. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Commissioner Gregory and I will be down there to help also.
About 6 o'clock, about 6 a.m.
Okay.
6 a.m. that morning? You didn't tell me that.
Just did.
Y'all are working?
He said 6, but
Y'all are working?
it comes AM and PM.
No.
Motion to adjourn.
We adjourned.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Oh, you
Well,
was
she's
saying?
not finished.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
okay.
I wanted to bring your attention that, the Monday work session for September is on Labor Day 4. Michael does not have a BZA meeting on Tuesday the 5th. Do y'all want to move the work session to the 5th at 5 o'clock? Tuesday.
I will not be.
Okay, I'll do tomorrow.
You don't appreciate it.
So
Yeah,
the, so the light, you get the wrong red light.
I guess not.
Discuss that.
We just decided.
Just for the record.
But I need to,
It's planned chaos.
well, actually, I just wanted to.
Dale's too. This is the building I'm on.
I don't have any, I don't have any of them all for.
I thought earlier that was good. It was really.
And I know it's tough. I know.
Get on their beds.
Flash your heart.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
I saw it. So this is for presentation, because I can do all things.
So I guess what I'm hearing though.
It's great. You got him on here. All right.
I know that it's getting worse and worse. It needs to be made on radar. Especially on a little tour.
And he's gonna microwave it.
I gotta go.
No.
But the road.
Like I'm looking at that from now.
Good to see you.
I hate to bring it to you tomorrow. Have, this, children. Can I get your?
She's actually in a wheelchair.